You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. We're your hosts, Sophia
and Leah.
And today we have Emma with us, who's going to share her two birth stories. And why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners?
Hi, my name is Emma. I am what am I? I'm a textile designer and a mom to two kids. I have a 3-month-old, so I kind of forget at some points.
That's like
who am I in the world again? I have two daughters, one 3-year-old and one 3-month-old. So it's a little bit of chaos around our house, and lovely partner, Matt.
Great. Well, why don't we just dive right into either your conception journey, or when you knew you wanted to be a mom, or when you found out you're pregnant, or whatever your starting point is.
Yeah, definitely. So little spoiler alert, both of my kids have been big surprises. So they had their own journey and we are along for the ride, essentially. But, you can tell that spirit in Fiona at 3 and probably 3 months old with Stella as well. With my first one, again, saying this was a total surprise. I had an IUD at the time, so pregnancy was not on my radar at all. My partner
sitting with an IUD is like panicking right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Spoiler alert: 99.9% is not actually. Yeah. Are there real statistics? I feel like they're not. Just from now having had a kid with an IUD and telling people that story, the amount of people that are like, "Oh, I know somebody," or "Me as well," or it feels like that can't be correct. But it wasn't on my radar at all. It was slightly just because I had a friend who had gotten pregnant with an IUD like a year and a half ago. And I had panic bought like a whole bunch of pregnancy tests on Amazon. And like whenever I felt like overly emotional or something, I would take a test and I'd be like, okay, no. So that panic had been there for, a couple of months. And then I was like, okay, I had one left. And I was getting ready for a trip to Hawaii with my best friend and her parents. I was tagging along on their family vacation. And I was trying on bikinis before I left. And one of the tops, I was like, this does not fit. What is going on with my boobs? Like I can't wear this top at all. So I was like, you know what, I have one more pregnancy test. Let's just take it. And it was positive. It's like, what? With the IUD that I had, which is the Kylena, it's like Mirena's like little sister, slightly less hormonal. I didn't get my period at all. So I hadn't had my period for 2 years. So there was zero clue of what my cycle was doing, where I was in that process. Just all very much a mystery.
Or even how far along you were?
Yeah, no clue. Zero clue. I have celiac, so I had been having some stomach issues beforehand, but you write that, it's easy to write off when you have an autoimmune condition that messes with your stomach. So it's like, oh, I must have eaten something. I remember at some point the month prior, I was like, maybe I have mono. I'm so tired. Just being so exhausted, but pregnancy was not a thing that popped into my brain until I saw my boobs. That was the big clue.
You didn't do a pregnancy test, just try it on.
No. just the boobs really are there. That's the giveaway. Everything else you can write off as something else, but that was its own thing. And I took that test at like probably 11 at night, and I was leaving at 5 in the morning for this family trip that I was, going on. And Matt, my husband, we had been together for a long time at that point. It was probably like 7 years, I think, 6 or 7 years, and we had just gotten engaged. It wasn't like this was, a new relationship or a total curveball in terms of what we were planning life-wise, but both he and I are planners, he more than me, and something happening outside of kind of the plan of how we had stacked things up was a big curveball for both of us. He wasn't home at the time. He was playing soccer, and he came home, and the way I told him was like, we have a problem. We need to talk about, which we have obviously 180'd on that, but
yeah, it's a normal response.
It's like something has gone terribly wrong and out of plan. And then I spent like the whole rest of the whole vacation, like being very emotional, like trying to get away to like have these conversations about, parenting, which we had very vaguely discussed as like something we would probably do in the future. Like unnamed date in future time. And it was just such a bizarre setting to be having these conversations, because I'd be getting very emotional and be crying. And the only place with service where we were staying was this this beach cove area that was absolutely gorgeous. Like nowhere else had service. We were in Kauai. And so I would be having these like meltdowns on this beach, and I'd like look up and somebody would be getting married, or like there was like a big engagement thing, and I'm like in the background like crying on the phone. This is just not the time or place for that. It's a lot of emotion going on, but when I got back, we talked more, and we're like, no, we're in. This is something that we want to do, but let's try to find out more information on where I'm at in this pregnancy, what's going on. Is it ectopic? Because that's obviously something you have to worry about with an IUD. They're not always in the right spot. And at the time, I had given exactly 0 thoughts to childbirth, pregnancy, any of it. I was the first one of my friends to have kids, really. Like, there's outside people that had kids, but in terms of close inner circle, I hadn't walked through anybody with their pregnancy journey, except for, a friend of mine from high school who she had her daughter when she was 19. So it was very different. I was 31 at the time. So even though I was in my 30s, none of my close friends were having kids, or that wasn't part of the discussion. And my mom with me, she had a hospital birth. She had an epidural, episiotomy, forceps, vacuum extraction, all that. And so that was kind of the story of birth that I had. It wasn't necessarily a positive birth. It was the idea that you would birth out of the hospital was not even in my radar at all. But I started off just going to my regular PCP doctor to be like, can you do a pregnancy test? Is this real? And I remember very clearly, this was a little bit before Matt and I had decided we were fully on board. We were still like, let's figure out what's happening, like all of our options, and then make our decision. And it's funny with these doctors. I feel like they look at you and they make assumptions about what your life should be or how it should look. Because when I was, talking to her about like, I need to figure out what's going on. Like, I have an IUD. How is this even happening? At that point, I couldn't even wrap my head around that actually happening. And she was just like, well, you're in your 30s. This is a good time to have kids. Which just like, feels so.
Your opinion.
Yeah. She was like, I know it seems weird, but isn't that good? Isn't it a good thing? It just felt so weird to me that someone would just make that assumption just based on your age
Weren't you saying like statistically the most common abortions are married women with two children?
I don't know if it's married, but mothers of two is the highest demographic of women who terminate pregnancies.
Yeah, just that there shouldn't be any assumptions to like what's going on in someone's life and if they're ready for a baby.
Yeah. So it just felt weird. It was like she was trying to have a good conversation with me. She's like, well, I'm that same age too. So, if I got randomly pregnant, I would be happy. It was just like, what? We're not the same, lady. But I just went to the first OB/GYN that would take me with my insurance. My insurance at the time was god awful. I was a freelancer, so it was like the California exchange program, the cheapest one. It's like, it's fine. I'm young. I don't need to go to the doctor. Just take this really bad insurance. And there was only one OB/GYN that was accepting new patients. So I just randomly went to her. And we had like a similar experience there too. I went in, got an ultrasound to confirm that with the placement of the pregnancy, figure out how far along it was. At that point, it was a little over 10 weeks, closer to 11 weeks is what
So pretty far along.
Yeah.
Decently far, yeah.
Almost your whole first trimester.
Yeah. All that morning sickness. I was just like, oh, must have eaten gluten. All that gone.
With the IUD, did they talk about like taking it out or risks with that, or did you keep it in? I mean,
well, they couldn't find it. So, originally they were like, two things could have happened. It could have fallen out, or it could have gotten pulled up into the uterus, which is what happened to me. So like as your uterus is growing, right, it's sitting at the edge of your cervix. As the uterus expands, it gets pulled in. So that's what happened in my case. It was pulled in. And we took a couple ultrasounds to like figure out that it was there. So there's also worries of if it was in the sac, like what that would do. But in my case, it wasn't. It was just kind of chilling outside of the waters in between. And it just stayed there the whole time.
And then it came out when you gave birth?
It did. It was, I had a manual extraction of my placenta. So they grabbed the IUD with all of that. So I'm not sure like if left alone, what would have happened, honestly. But they had discussed sometimes it doesn't come out and then you essentially have to have a DNC later.
Okay.
But it was very much like, we'll deal with that if it happens.
It's okay. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you confirmed you're like roughly 10 weeks, the pregnancy is supposed to be.
And this is like my other just note about when people say things out of place with this doctor, this OB versus my PCP. Because we had asked about options, like what are the options if we don't want to continue with this pregnancy? What does termination look like? And she just stopped cold for one solid minute, didn't say a single word, just like looked at both of us, completely silent, which a minute is a long time. And then she just asked, how old are you?
Wow.
I'm like, lady, it is on the ultrasound. You know how old I am. This is okay. I'm 31. She was just let that sink in again for a little bit. She was like, well, you think you drank a little whiskey, a little wine, and you don't want to have this baby. Okay. She's like, it's fine. You can drink and it's not going to affect it. Your baby is fine. She's like, obviously, I'm legally obliged in the state of California to tell you that you do have options, but I will not be providing them for you. You would need to find another doctor. Wow. And then she left the room. Yeah.
Wow.
So cool.
Yeah. Wow. Like
very cool woman.
And I can't believe it. Wow.
Yeah. So she made that very clear, where her stance was. And at the time I was like, oh man, I can't with my insurance, I couldn't switch to another OB until in California, if people aren't from California, open enrollment happens end of December. So I had her in May. So, about halfway through my pregnancy, I switched insurance programs. So I saw a new OB after that. But in the meantime, I was kind of stuck with her in that practice. And there were like so many things that bothered me about that practice. Like, first of all, they didn't have water. They had a vending machine in the office, in the waiting room. And it was like Coke and Mountain Dew and no water. And when they asked you like pee in a cup, I was like, can I have some water? And they're like, you can buy it from the vending machine. Like, when I told them there was no water there, they're like, okay, I guess you can have a cup. Oh. They didn't have soap in the bathrooms, like I don't know what's happening there.
There's a lot of things that surprise me about the health industry, but like especially around pregnancy, you would think that they would just be people who are more like, I don't know, loving and soft, and they always just seem so harsh.
It was very weird. I had a nurse told me to slow down on my weight gain, which was like, okay.
That doesn't surprise me.
No.
Yeah.
It never senses to infuriate me, but
but enough about this OB in that practice. That was not my favorite experience. It's fine. It's over. At the time, I talked to a bunch of people trying to get a feel on like what would be a good option as I was switching insurance. I had a lot of people recommend Kaiser to me. So I was like, okay, you know what? That seems easy. I'll just switch to Kaiser. That's the route I'll go. I do not advocate doing that at all, but that was the information I had at the time, so I went with it. So I switched to Kaiser Insurance around 20 weeks, like halfway through my pregnancy. And the first red flag with them was when I had my first visit with them, they run STD panels on you as a part of the regular, routine care that you get. So I had gotten one with this first OB. Results were fine. Had a panel with the second, and had a visit with the first OB in that practice. And she was looking through all of my results, and she was like, oh, everything looks fine, okay, on to your next appointment. And then that was like a Monday. And then on a Friday, I get a phone call from a random number that called me a couple of times. And I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe it's someone from Kaiser. I should just answer it. And it ended up being the Los Angeles Department of Health. And at the time I was living in LA. And I was like, what, who are you? It's like, sounded like a kid, like just like 18 years old, like first job probably, to like call people and tell them they tested positive for STDs. And he was calling me to tell me that I had syphilis. And I was like, what, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, I just need you to know, this, obviously, like your doctor probably talked to you about this already. It's like, what? What are you talking about? No one mentioned anything to me about this. And he was like, I don't know what to say. It's like, we just need to make sure you're not pregnant, because that would be bad. I was like just laid into this kid. He was just like, I don't know, man. Like, I make these phone calls. I gotta go. And he like hung up on me. I think I just scared him so much. And then I was just trying to get a hold of this office to be like, what the hell? Like, what? Syphilis? Like, how did I get syphilis? What? I had just gotten this STD panel a while ago. Like I don't have syphilis. And I didn't. I eventually got a hold of somebody, and they were like, okay, you have this might be a false positive. We'll redo this. And it ended up being negative. It was fine. But it was just so weird to me that this OB would order that, look at the results, tell me it was fine, when syphilis is something that is a problem if you're going to have a baby, right? Like, it can cause stillbirth, if left untreated. And that was the only time anybody had mentioned these results to me. I don't think anybody would have looked at that again. And if I hadn't just answered this phone call from the Department of Health, which I don't normally answer blocked, like random numbers. And I don't think they can leave messages on your phone. So it's just like, okay. I know that would have just gone completely untreated if I hadn't answered that and gone into that rabbit hole.
If it was real, right? Because
if it was real, and it wasn't real. So, but it's just like the weird amounts of things that happened throughout this pregnancy that honestly should have been huge red flags for this care that I was receiving.
Many people are just raised in that medical system where that's what we, I mean, it surprises us, but we're also like, okay, but it's
like,
not,
what is the other option? If your eyes haven't been open to out of hospital birth, then you just keep going.
Yeah, which is what I did. I had switched to a midwife, which was my, wow, look at me. Taking it into my own hands here.
Radical.
Screw those OBs. I'm going with this nurse midwife who wasn't even, they don't work on the weekends as well. So it's like the likelihood of you actually getting a midwife to care for you at your birth and again, this was in Los Angeles, Kaiser Sunset facility was a very low possibility. And a couple other weird things, like she was breech at 7 weeks, did all the things to try to flip her. None of them worked. Did an ECV, that worked. Mm-hmm. So that was a nice thing because I know it's not common for those to work. And at Kaiser, they're like, oh, if she doesn't flip at this ECV, we're going to book you for your C-section like that day. Or you're not going to have the C-section that day, but they'll book you for a very soon C-section because they're not going to give you the option of going into labor with a breech baby, basically. And this was also COVID. Forget about that. So she was May of 2020. So she was, March came along, and that was a big change for everyone and how we thought about things. I had thought about switching to a birth center birth at that point, and I kind of wish I did, but it ended up being so expensive, because we were already paying for this insurance that made it a lot cheaper. With Kaiser, they wouldn't have covered anything, so we ended up just staying the course with Kaiser there instead of trying to switch. Mm-hmm. Care providers, but there was the whole scare at that point of would partners be allowed in, and that was very tenuous. And then doula, I had a doula, she was not allowed to come, but we were hoping that we would be able to labor at home for a good portion of it, and she would be able to come to our house before we had to go to the hospital, which didn't quite end up being the case, but I kind of wish that had happened. So I went to like 40 weeks and 5 days, and my water broke like first thing in the morning, and it wasn't a big gush, it was a tiny leak, teeny tiny leak. And I checked in the morning, and I was like, oh, there's a little bit of green, it's meconium. I felt proud of myself for being educated and knowing what that was. And I'm like, damn it, I wish I hadn't known what that was. It was like the slightest green tint. So I called my doula to let her know I had 0 contractions, just kind of this like slow leak. And she's like, okay, well, should tell your midwife and see what she says. A lot of the times, hopefully she'll just say, stay home and wait till labor starts. That would be our ideal, but let her know and let her make those decisions. So I called her, and she was like, go in immediately. You have meconium, you have to be in the hospital right now. And so we didn't quite listen to that. We did like a 3-mile walk. So I was like, I am starting this labor. I'm just gonna wear a diaper and like walk for 3 miles. And absolutely nothing happened. I was like, let's eat a big hearty lunch. maybe that'll start something. Nothing happened. So it's like, eventually I was like, okay, I guess, I had noticed that at like 5 a.m. It was now like 2 p.m. Okay, I guess we should probably go in. She had started calling my phone, being like, where are you? Why haven't you checked in yet?
Oh, you meant now.
Yeah. Which I am so glad that we did all of those things, even though maybe walking 3 miles was like a little much. But I'm glad I had my big meal. I'm glad we did all of that, because it ended up being a very long process. When I got in, and again, May 2020. So I go in by myself, and then, you wait to be admitted until your partner is allowed up. So, you're by yourself for like, I was by myself probably like 3-4 hours. It was a while before they let him come up. And, got in, they're like, oh, yep, this is meconium, just very light, but we've gotta start this process along. So we'll get you started on Pitocin. That's your option. Another thing that had made me a little bit ticked off is when I was meeting with my midwife earlier in my pregnancy. She was like, write out your birth plan and then bring it to me, and I'll put that in your chart. So then when you go to the hospital, if you're in labor, you don't have to worry about bringing your birth plan. This is a great new option. Everyone will have access to this. You don't have to carry around another piece of paper if you don't have access to a printer. Like, it'll just be so much easier. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I brought her my birth, typed it up, brought it to her. She's like, okay, you're all set. Get there. And they're like, what are you talking about? No one has birth plans in their chart. That's not a thing. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I've like done all this research on things that I was planning on doing at that point as well. Backing up a little bit, I have hemophilia C, which is it's a type of hemophilia. I'm very borderline for that. The only reason I know is that it runs in my family, and my cousin had it, and she had brain cancer and ended up passing away when they did surgery to remove the tumor. Because of that, they found out later that was the cause. And all of our numbers are around the same, but it's like, when I told my practice, that they were like, oh, okay, you need to see a hematologist to get clearance to get an epidural. And at that point, there had been some question. The hematologist I saw said, with the current numbers that you have, you're not eligible for an epidural, but those numbers might change, but you should plan to not have an epidural. So I should have mentioned that before. So I'd gone in with all of this. Okay, I'm going to have a natural birth, but like, that's just not really out of choice. But I was like, I better wrap my head around this. If I'm not going to be able to get this pain management, I better figure out how I'm going to cope with that. So I had actually had pretty lengthy birth plan at this point, but had been no more. And so they were like, okay, well, just tell us what you want. And I was like, I guess just to be treated with dignity and respect. And they were like, okay, we got you.
We don't do that here either.
We got you. I was like, I don't know if you do.
I don't have an option for that.
Yes, honey, we'll do that for you. And originally they're like, we'll start you on Pitocin. We'll start it really low. It'll be very, crank it up very slowly, just one step at a time, so you'll be able to deal with that. And we have the I forget what they're called, the portable monitors where you don't have to be hooked up to things.
It's the Monica? Is that what I think one's called? I don't know.
Oh yeah, I think that is what the thing that they had. So it's like, I'll be having that. I'll be moving around. That's my plan. And I get in and they're like, oh, none of these wireless monitors work. So nope, in the bed for you. Which apparently is a very, very common thing for them just to not work. And then they're like, okay, well, your contractions aren't coming fast enough. So actually we're going to crank up this Pitocin like way more. I think it goes from like 1 to 20.
I think
by the end of it,
2, 4, 6, 8. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were like jump. I think like towards the end they had it at like 18, like basically like as much Pitocin as you can possibly have. is what they were kind of pulling into me. And at the time I was like, I tried to go for an epidural without an epidural for a long time. I ended up getting cleared. They drew my blood. And they were like, okay, you can get an epidural, but they had written like, they have a little board, they write, you want a natural birth and you want these things, and they like start to cross them out. For you. I don't know did you know they do that? It's weird.
That's horrible.
You're like, no, you didn't get that.
Anything you wanted.
Yeah. But once they had done the blood work and cleared me for an epidural, there was some random nurse. She wasn't my nurse at all. She came into the room and just went, oh, I just had to see the mama that wanted a natural birth who's already asking for an epidural.
People are horrible.
Yeah. Like, cool, I don't know you. I don't know you. And I didn't ask anything. They just ran my blood work, but okay, fun. You're fun. But she left and that was my only interaction with her. So that was good. It's just like so bizarre to have someone come in and be like, I'm just dropping like, did you know you're failing already? Cool. I'll leave now. We're talking about you. It was just very, it was just exactly. So weird.
Talking about you.
Yeah. It was a slow day, it's just bizarre. But I tried to do the in-bed Pitocin for a while. I think I made it like 12 hours, 14 hours or something, just on an insane amount of PIT, but my body wasn't reacting well to it. I think it was essentially freaking my uterus because the contractions weren't very productive. It was just essentially making my uterus spasm. Because they didn't have the portable monitors, the nurse I had was very rigid on being able to monitor baby at all times. So she was just such a pain, come try a different position. She'd come back. She's like, I can't have a read on the baby. You need to lie back down. I tried to be like, I need to go to the bathroom and spend extra time in the bathroom. And just come in after 3 minutes to be like, that's enough time, get back to bed. It's like very aggressive. She was young and I don't know, maybe just like very much felt like she needed to have a read on the baby at all times, even though the read she was doing fine. It was a little bit bizarro. But eventually I decided to get an epidural. I had only progressed to 3 centimeters. So I was like, you know what, this is just not going to happen in this setting for me. Like, there's no way I can relax enough to get this to work without some pain medication. So I got that, and that happened very quickly. That was great. The one thing that was like, they were like, okay, you want an epidural? Now we'll bring this in for you. And after that, I kind of just knocked out for maybe
just rested
3 hours. Yeah, had a big long rest, but I think it was I was either going through a transition or I had an infection. It was treated as if I had an infection, but my temperature started rising and I was shaking uncontrollably. Could have also been from the epidural.
To have like epidural induced fevers. But yeah, it's like until they look at your placenta after, they don't really know if it was infection or the epidural.
Yeah. So that started happening, and the doctor I had came in and he was like, oh, this is an infection. This is definitely an infection. Like, if you're not dilated, we're going to have to move to a C-section. This guy wanted to do a C-section so very badly. And I could not stand this man. And this was over Memorial Day weekend. So he had like an extra long shift. It kept being like, when is shift changed? When is this dude gone? But he was there for the whole weekend, basically. I was like, he's got to leave soon, right? And like, no, he was on like a 72-hour shift. So I had him for the whole time.
In total?
It was 36 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So decently long. But when he was like, okay, we're going to move to a C-section unless you're fully dilated. And then I was. So I was like, suck it, dude.
What was pushing like?
Pushing was a little... It was bizarro, to be honest. Mainly because in that experience, you're in this dark room and then all of a sudden there's giant light on you.
Yeah.
And they, for some reason, felt the need to do a last minute ultrasound before they let me push, which is weird. I think because she had been breech, and I think because he really wanted to do a C-section. He was like, let's see. She might have flipped again. Like, we might be able to do one. But for like 2.5 hours.
Okay. Not too bad on an epidural.
Yeah. Which wasn't that bad. My epidural did run out, like the bag ran out. And because I hadn't been very productive, I was like, let's not replace it. Let's just stop this now, so I can actually feel something, because I couldn't feel anything in the very beginning. So I think the bag ran out like 20 minutes into pushing or something like that. So I was just it was just slowly like petering out. I think it had been quite strong, but so towards the end, I was like, oh, okay, no, I'm getting sensation back. I get this, but it took a while.
You got her out.
I got her out, but I got her out with an episiotomy, forceps, and vacuum, which is exactly how I emerged into the world.
Living your birth, yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very reminiscent of that. And the doctor, again, I think someone must have had a talk with him about informed consent. So he was trying to do things that would count as informed consent, but weren't really. Like, he wanted to give me an episiotomy, and I said no. And he said, if you don't consent to this, I will have to like knock you out and do an emergency C-section. So it was like, okay, well, all right, then I guess cut away. Because you're just being backed into a corner where there's no true consent in that situation. When someone's saying like, your two options are like cut you right here or cut you on the table, and you're not gonna have
just like leave.
Yeah.
You're see at that point.
Yeah. And I didn't hear this part, but Matt said later that he had turned to one of the attendings and said, she's gonna tear anyway. So
the doctor said that.
Yeah. So we're just gonna do this. Which was frustrating, but eventually managed to get her out. It was the third vacuum pull, so they give you three chances with that, basically. But managed to get her out, and then they put her on my chest for like maybe 30 seconds, and then whisked her away, just because there had been meconium. That's when they bring in the NICU team. So they brought her over to the table and were working on her for a while, which made me feel like there was some concern. But then later, when I asked, they were like, oh no, she was fine. They just wanted to do they wanted to do all their things, all the weighing and the hats and the back and all of that. So I didn't really get the golden hour either, which was frustrating. They gave her to Matt before they gave her to me again, which was also annoying. And then they gave my placenta 20 minutes to come out. So we had this very short amount of time after this like very rushed delivery.
20 hours in the hospital.
Yeah.
So it's usually like 2 minutes and they're on it.
Yeah. So, okay. So I guess they gave me 20 minutes, but
still
it was weird. They were like stitching me up first, and then they were like, oh, this placenta hasn't come out. We're going to have to go in. And they were going in a little bit. And at this point, it had been probably like 2 hours without the epidural. So I was starting to be able to feel things again. And they're like, did like a little test. And they're like, can you feel that? And I was like, yes, I can feel that. And they're like, no, you can't feel that. And then like just went up in and pulled out my placenta and the IUD. But that was very, very unpleasant. And it felt very rude for someone to be like, no, you can't feel that. You're wrong. You're wrong about your pain that you're saying you're experiencing. I think I was in shock at that point. So I don't think I was, even though I was saying like, this hurts, I wasn't reacting in the way like,
looked like it hurt.
It didn't show as much as it felt, basically. So they were like, you're fine. buck up. It was a very weird experience.
What was the rest of the like immediate postpartum like, or nursing? Did that all go smooth, or?
No, not particularly. It was a challenge. Yeah, nursing was very, very difficult with Fiona. I have flat nipples, and I had no idea what I was doing. And in the postpartum unit, because it was Memorial Day, she was born in the very morning of Memorial Day. There was no lactation consultant on staff. So the nurse came in, she was like, I'll be your lactation consultant. And then she was like, it's not working. I need to give your baby formula. And like gave her formula without asking me, which was also not great. And Fiona had a lot of weight loss in the first week. She dropped down a considerable amount. So that was also something that everyone was on pins and needles about. And we had been told the whole babies need to eat every 2 to 3 hours. So you need to wake her up and make sure she's eating. And I was doing like pumping plus breastfeeding and bottle feeding around the clock for like the first month, I think, about. So that was just, it was too hard. I would 0 out of 10 would not recommend that. It was very tricky, very challenging. And I was just like, you have this baby and you're like, everything feels so new. Didn't really know how to get support. It was also early COVID. So everyone, lactation consultants, doctors, like, again, everything was in a weirder space than I think in any normal circumstances. So it was a lot harder to get somebody, to actually help and look at the situation.
Did you leave that experience being like, this is why I didn't want to have a baby? Like, this just is a shitty experience. Like, I don't know why anyone does it. Or did you feel like it didn't have to be this way?
It didn't have to be this way.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do not think it, and obviously it doesn't have to be this way.
But like you at that time, were you like,
at that time, I was like, there's something seriously wrong with the system and this care that I've received. And it just, the more and more I dissected things, because I was very stuck on this whole experience for quite a long time. And I left just feeling angry. I think anger was my main emotion towards how I was treated and the way things were set up and how everything went down. And it just felt so clear that something was terribly wrong with this. And, there wasn't, it didn't feel like there was anything that I needed to be saved from. It just felt like there were a whole lot of problems and issues that were created. And then a whole lot of people that were more than happy to attend to these issues that were created by things that were done.
That's what they went for.
Yeah. Like, we got this part, the thing where you just let it happen on its own. We don't understand that. So we don't like that. So I can't remember when that kind of light bulb moment happened, but it was definitely a decent amount of processing when I was like, wait, this just doesn't need to happen to women. I had a therapist right afterwards and we were discussing it, and it really clicked in that this was not right. Like, this is actual abuse, is how this is being done. There's things that like mirror other traumas, and then you're like, wait, I'm not having a reaction because of past traumas. I'm having a reaction because this is in and of itself a trauma. How this is presented to women as your choice and as your option.
Like the option of episiotomy or C-section.
Yeah, that's not an option. That's
and that you were given informed consent and you like made the choice. You chose the episiotomy. Like, that was your choice. Right? No.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like as I was being wheeled to the postpartum unit, the nurse I had at the time, she just kept saying over and over again, you are so lucky. You don't know how lucky you are that you didn't get a C-section. You have no idea how close you came to a C-section. You are so lucky, so lucky, so lucky. She kept saying it over and over again. It's like, is that actually lucky though? Like, I mean, it is. I'm glad I didn't have a C-section, but it's like, doesn't mean that the experience otherwise was also not a big pile of shit, to be completely frank. So it was a weird framing of what you should be grateful for in that system. And it's just like a vaginal birth, I guess, is what you should be grateful for.
Yeah. Setting the bar really low.
Yeah. You didn't have to have surgery in an OR. I think it's still considered like some sort of surgical birth. I think if you have the forceps and vacuum, I think I saw it noted that way. But anyway, so my, kind of walked away from that whole experience knowing that if and when we had a second child, I would do everything completely different.
Okay, that was such an involved first birth for you. We decided we wanted to do a part 2 because I know your second birth deserves as much time as the first because it's so amazing. So we're gonna come back for a part 2. We have it planned. So everyone who's listening, stay tuned for that. But for everyone who is listening, will you go ahead and leave some contact info just in case anyone wants to reach out to you at all?
Yeah, of course. The best way to reach me is probably through Instagram. That's the social media that I use the most. And my handle is just my full name, Emma_Shuko. And I am private, but if you want to reach out and want to chat about anything, please let me know. I'll add you and we can chat. And I also have my design account, which is public, which is Emma Shuko Design.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
All right. I look forward to hearing the other one.
Much more positive outcome.
And I'll pretend I have no idea what's going to happen. See you then.
Okay.
See you then. Bye.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us at Born Wild Podcast on Instagram. For inquiries or feedback, you can email us at bornwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me, Emma Ray, on Instagram at Emma Ray, REA. Sophia at sophiabirth.com.
And me, Lea, at Bay Area Home Birth.
We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people. And as always, stay wild.